Is the old lady who runs the brothel actually Mao Mao's biological grandmother? Who are Jinshi's real parents? What's going on with Lady Ottawa and Lady Lishu? I'm up by the otaku and I've read all 14 of the Apothecary Diaries light novels, plus volumes 15 and 16 of the Apothecary Diaries web novel. Today, me and my master's degree in English are going to answer some of these questions and fill in some plot holes for you. First, we're going to talk about found family as a theme and trope. Then we'll look at some examples in the Apothecary Diaries. And then I'm going to debunk one of the most upsetting rumors I've seen come out of the Apothecary Diaries fandom regarding Mao Mao's biological grandma. I've seen a lot of content online claiming that the granny from the brothel is Feng Shen's mother. I've even seen content going as far to say that the author confirmed it and that's just not true. So let's debunk these things together. And my hope is that in answering all of these questions, we're really going to get to explore found family and what all of that means in the context of the Apothecary Diaries. Let's get started. If you've watched 5 different animes, chances are the found family trope showed up in at least 2 of them. The Apothecary Diaries can be added to that list. Oftentimes in shows like Naruto or Demon Slayer, we see examples of characters who have little to no biological family, find friends and comrades that they then begin to revere, love, and care for as family. And it also appears in other shows like Fruits Baskets, for example, where we can see characters like Toru Honda make a decision to leave their biological family and stay with their found family. Because for them, the love, support, consideration, and care that they're getting from their found family is a better fit for them than what they're getting from their biological family. There are also animes like Black Clover, where characters are born into the found family and they grow up developing familial relationships with people that they have no biological connection to. The Apothecary Diaries is overflowing with examples of exactly this. The issue of family in the Apothecary Diaries is directly related to the plot itself. Who will succeed the emperor in the imperial succession? However, the story beats and the emotional ties that are created in this series are more closely related to the idea of found family. Let's take a look at Lady Lishu and Lady Adwa. I have gotten so many questions on my TikTok regarding why did Jinshi cry when Lady Adwa left if he has no idea that that is his mother? And I always say, well, let's look at Lady Lishu, right? Lady Adwa is clearly not Lady Lishu's mother, but she also cries because we know from the story or from the anime, whichever you're consuming, Lady Lishu had a very close maternal relationship to Lady Adwa. Lady Lishu was given as a political prize to the former emperor. Now, fortunately, Lady Anshi had already put in the work and done what she needed to do, and the former emperor was no longer able to visit new concubines or consorts, so Lady Lishu was never taken advantage of by him. But she was also a very young little girl in this new environment with no biological family, and at the time, Lady Adwa was a mother with no children, and so they formed a very close relationship. This is not a spoiler, but as the seasons go on, you are going to see more examples of their closeness, more examples of their relationship, and you're really going to get a better feel for just how close they are and how much and even why Lady Lishu regards Lady Adwa as a maternal figure, as a mother figure. There's also Lady Gyokyo and her many ladies in waiting. They have introduced the 3 new ladies in waitings in the anime, but we haven't really gotten a lot of their lore just yet. Let me tell y'all something. Lady Gyokyo got the most TTG ladies in waitings in the whole series. They are riding for her. I want to highlight a section in the novel that didn't come up in the anime more specifically though. So this clip is from the POV from Lady Yinghua, which is one of the original ladies in waitings in the story. Lady Yinghua loves Lady Gyokyo so much that when Lady Gyokyo is decided to go to the palace, it says that Lady Yinghua was bent on following her lady wherever she might go. She also mentions not all of Gyokyo's ladies showed the same dedication, but those who remained simply resolved to work even harder to make up the difference. This is a woman that very willingly left her hometown, though she wasn't living in the lap of luxury. She still had a life of far more freedom than she's afforded being a lady in waiting to a consort in the rear palace. She gave up that extra added piece of freedom to follow another woman into the rear palace. And even though she's doing far more work than she should be doing, than should be anticipated in doing, she does it happily because she reveres Lady Gyokyo so highly. In the anime, we don't really get a lot of POVs from her ladies in waitings, but this is not the only example of when they are considering her very highly, almost like a big sister. And certainly we cannot forget about Lakan, Loman, Lahan's older brother, and Maomao. That entire La clan family tree is nothing but found family, right? Though they do have biological ties to one another, they revere each other in very different ways. Maomao reveres Loman not as a great uncle, but as a father. Lakan is the same. Lahan reveres Lakan not as an uncle, but as a father. Maomao reveres Lahan's older brother as more of a brother to her than she really revered Lahan. They're all creating their own familial unit. And this is not the only time we see Maomao engaging with practices like that, right? In fact, if we're going in order, one of the very first examples of found family that we see in this series is within Maomao's relationship to the women of the Verdigris house. The relationship that Maomao has with Joka, Maymay, Pyrene, and Granny at the Verdigris house is the foundation for found family, not only as a trope, but as a theme in the Apothecary Diaries. That's why I personally think it's asinine to believe the rumors that Granny is Maomao's biological grandmother. It not only undermines the theme of found family, but it causes some pretty major character mischaracterizations, and it distorts some of the characters' motivations for their actions. I know it seems like an easy answer to the question, well, why did Granny let Fengshen stay after she could no longer work? But if you really think about it, it creates more plot holes than it may seem to fill. The first plot hole: if Granny is Fengshen's literal mother and Maomao is her literal granddaughter, then why, when Loman comes on the scene, does Granny trust Loman enough to let him become the caretaker of a young, defenseless child who has no means of fighting back, but doesn't trust him enough to treat her literal daughter? That to me creates a plot hole. If you trust him with your young, defenseless granddaughter, surely you would trust him enough with your adult, many defenses available to her daughter. Also, if that were the case, wouldn't you want your daughter to be healthy enough to take care of her daughter so that you would not have to raise her daughter, and so that she could keep taking care of herself? That to me creates a plot hole. I also think that the story goes out of its way to continually remind us that courtesans cannot be mothers. So creating multiple courtesans that have children in the brothel would undermine that, right? And we know that though Granny does not work as a courtesan now, she never actually retired. She is, for all intents and purposes, a career courtesan. So when would she have had a child? The math just does not make sense. Speaking of the math, if that's true, how old do you guys even think Granny was when she had Fengshen? Because when we hear the story of the envoy and how they wanted to see the moon fairy because their great grandfather told them how beautiful she was, we learn that not only is that Granny, but this took place 2 emperors ago. This is at least 50 to 60 years in the past, and we know at this time Granny was already a young adult woman. I'm admittedly not a mathematician, but that would mean she would have had to have Fengshen somewhere in her late 30s, early 40s, and that is way past birthing age, especially in this time for a courtesan that has been spending the majority of her adult life, and sadly maybe even a little bit before that, taking various abortifacients. I mean, they're only subject to the kind of medical care that they have in that day and age at that time anyway. Like, that just would not make sense mathematically or even logically. If you got the math a little bit better than me, please, by all means, leave that in the comment. Let's learn arithmetic together. But for me, that doesn't make sense age-wise. And I know what you're thinking. Okay, yeah, maybe, but the author even confirmed it. That is not true. I saw so many people saying that, and it set me on a wild goose chase to try to find, like, when did she say that? Where did she say that? And I came across this question and answering site that she uses to answer fan questions. And the person said, hey, is Granny Fengshen's mother? And Natsuhyuga's response was, Surudoi desu ne. Now, first, before I go into this explanation, let me just give 2 disclaimers. One, I am obviously not a native Japanese speaker, but I do speak Japanese. I live in Japan. I listen and speak Japanese on a regular basis. My Japanese is not strong because my grammar is not strong. I am self-taught. However, what I have been told by multiple people is that a trademark sign of sarcasm in Japanese language is the use of desne, because it creates a question where there should be a statement. I'm going to put a link in the description box to a TikTok video. It's like a Japanese language lesson, but the woman is teaching terms for sarcasm and Japanese sarcasm. And I would say about 3/4 of the terms she uses or phrases that she uses utilize the phrase desne at the end of the sentence, because that's like a dog whistle for sarcasm. So when I read Natsuhyuga's response, I don't read "that's sharp" a statement. I read "isn't that sharp?" or like "that's sharp." Either way, her use of a sarcastic phrase to answer this question kind of signals that she thinks that this is a stupid question that doesn't deserve an earnest answer. Because if you look at what she already went out of her way to put in the text, 16 novels of this. 16! Then it's clear that Granny is not Fengshen's mother. Also, we get every single main character's biological family tree, okay? We even get some side characters' biological family tree. I can tell you what Rickerson's mother wore to her prom last Tuesday, okay? She be going in detail. So why would we never get confirmation of Maomao's biological grandmother in the text if that was true? Up there here. So shortly after I filmed and edited like 80% of this video, the Apothecary Diaries actually had a pop-up exhibition here in Tokyo. I wish I could have gotten a better image for you guys. This image is just a screen grab from a vlog, but they unveiled a framework connecting all of the characters to one another in all of the ways that were appropriate. If you look here, you will see that there is no line connecting Fengshen to Granny. The only thing that's connecting them is that they both worked at the Verdigris house. As you can see, all of them are boxed in with the three princesses. Additionally, there is no line connecting Maomao to Granny. The only familial lines connecting Maomao are the ones to Lomin, Lakan, and Fengshen. I see so much confusion in this fandom, and I think a lot of it is because people are trying to make sense of information that isn't there. And it leads to a lot of mischaracterization. It leads to a lack of comprehension of like the themes and what I think the story is going for as far as messaging. And I think sometimes you really have to go with like a less is more kind of take with these things, right? You don't need more information. Just deal with the information that you have. They're not related. I will say, I think another source of confusion for this fandom is that they are really hanging on to Natsuhyuga's every word, but Natsuhyuga is incredibly sarcastic. I asked one of my coworkers to help me translate an interview from her. It was a written interview, and my coworker was like, oh my gosh, who is this person talking? They're being so cheeky right now. Like, that's very un-Japanese of them. So I think when it's getting translated for people that don't speak Japanese, they're not really acknowledging how snarky she is, and they're taking it very seriously, and I think that that's also adding to miscommunication. Anyway, I just really wanted to share this image with you guys. I hope it helps. Back to the video. That would be a glaring mistake, and call me a fangirl, call me an otaku, but call me an otaku. But I just think too highly of Natsuhyuga to think that she would create such a glaring empty spot regarding Maomao's lineage if that was her intention. Like, that to me just doesn't make sense. I'm not done, but if you've made it this far into the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share this video with somebody you know who loves the Apothecary Diaries as much as you and I do, okay? Let's keep these good vibes going. Okay, so like I said, found family is a huge theme in the Apothecary Diaries series, and a great example of that is the relationship that Maomao has with the women of the Verdigris house. And this story is filled with so many various types of found family. I think if you try to negate the most prominent one, the most visible one, the one that most comes up throughout the story over and over and over again, because it's the foundation of what Maomao thinks of when she thinks of family, you undermine the theme in a way that distorts a lot of the meaning of what's happening in the story. Also, if you have any questions about any like themes or like plot points in the Apothecary Diaries that you would love to have explained, let me know in the comments and I'll put that on the queue. Otherwise, I will see you in the next Apothecary Diaries explained video. Bye.